The simulation chamber hummed with an eerie blue luminescence as Instructor Vextharn stood before the assembled cadets of the 447th Interstellar Naval Academy cohort. His 4 optical sensors swept across the rows of beings from 17 different species, each one representing the best and brightest their worlds had to offer. But his gaze lingered longest on the lone human seated in the back row. Cadet Sarah Chen sat with her arms crossed, her dark eyes alert despite the early morning hour. She was unremarkable by human standards, average height, lean build, with her black hair pulled back in a regulation bun. But to Vextharn and the other instructors, she represented something unprecedented. Humanity's first candidate for the elite tactical command program. Today, Vextharn's translator device rendered his clicking mandibles into standard galactic. You will face the Corvash scenario. A collective intake of breath rippled through the assembled cadets. Even Sarah straightened slightly in her seat. The Corvash scenario was legendary throughout the Academy. Developed 3 centuries ago by the militant Corvash Empire before their integration into the Galactic Coalition, it was designed to test tactical thinking under impossible circumstances. The statistics were brutal, a 99.4% failure rate across all species. Those who passed typically took anywhere from 6 to 14 hours, emerging psychologically scarred from the decisions they'd been forced to make. The scenario is simple in premise, Vextharn continued, his exoskeleton plates shifting with what might have been satisfaction. You are the captain of a coalition frigate. You encounter a distress signal from a civilian transport carrying 3,000 souls. However, your sensors also detect a Void Reaper, an autonomous weapon from the old wars, on an intercept course with a populated station of 50,000 inhabitants. You have fuel and time to save only one. The transport will be destroyed in 47 minutes, the station in 52 minutes. A Threxian cadet raised a tentacle. Instructor, surely the mathematical choice is obvious. The greater number is not the only factor, Vextharn cut him off. The transport carries the matriarch of the Delphine Concordat in her bloodline, the last of their royal family. If they die, the Concordat, comprising 14 systems, will likely fragment into civil war, causing millions of deaths over years. The station, however, houses a research facility developing a cure for the Crimson Plague, which kills hundreds of thousands annually across the galaxy. The Threxian's bioluminescent skin flickered in confusion and retreated into silence. Additionally, Vextharn's voice carried a note of something that might have been cruel amusement. Your ship systems are damaged. Your weapons are offline. Your communication is limited to short range only. Your crew of 200 is demoralized from a previous failed mission. And, he paused for effect, one of your senior officers is secretly a saboteur working for a faction that wants both the transport and the station destroyed. Sarah's eyes narrowed. She recognized the scenario for what it was, not just a tactical puzzle, but a psychological trap. It was designed to break the cadet, to force them to make impossible choices while dealing with cascading crises and betrayal. You will enter the simulation one at a time, Vextharn announced. Cadet Zexler, you're first. Over the next 6 hours, Sarah watched as cadet after cadet entered the chamber and emerged broken. Zexler, the Threxian, spent 4 hours paralyzed by indecision before the simulation force-ended with both targets destroyed. A Valorian cadet made a choice within minutes but emerged in tears, unable to cope with the simulated death she'd caused. A Corthan, known for their logical minds, attempted to find a third option and ended up with his ship destroyed by the saboteur while he deliberated. Some cadets tried to split their resources, sending shuttles to one target while the main ship went to the other. None had enough time. Some tried to communicate with other coalition ships, but the scenario placed them too far from reinforcements. Some tried to destroy the Void Reaper with creative solutions, using their ship as a ram, overloading their reactor, but the simulation accounted for every conventional tactic. By the time Vextharn called Cadet Chen, 17 cadets had attempted the scenario. 17 had failed. Sarah stood and walked to the chamber with steady steps. As she passed, she caught whispers from other cadets. "The human won't last an hour. I heard humans are emotionally unstable. This will destroy her. Primitive species shouldn't even be in this program." The chamber door sealed behind her with a hiss. Sarah found herself on a perfect replica of a Coalition frigate bridge. Holographic crew members moved at their stations, their faces etched with worry. Red emergency lighting bathed everything in an ominous glow. "Captain on the bridge," the XO announced, a Palaxian named Commander Vecris in the simulation. Sarah moved to the captain's chair but didn't sit. Her eyes scanned the readouts, absorbing information with the pattern recognition humans had evolved over millions of years of survival. Fuel levels, 23%. System damage, weapons offline, shields at 40%, engines functional but strained. Crew morale, critically low. The distress calls began immediately, filling the bridge with desperate voices. "This is Transport Serenity. We're venting atmosphere. The matriarch is aboard. Please, anyone." "Station Prometheus. The Void Reaper is accelerating. We have 50,000 people here. We're evacuating, but we need more time." Sarah closed her eyes for exactly 3 seconds. When she opened them, they held a clarity that made the simulated crew unconsciously straighten. "Helm," she said calmly, "plot a course directly between both targets. Maximum speed." The helmsman, a young Telvorian, looked confused. "Captain, that trajectory puts us equidistant from both and unable to reach either in time." "Do it." As the ship accelerated, Sarah turned to the communications officer. "Send a tight beam transmission to the transport. Tell them to immediately vent all remaining atmosphere on the port side, using the matriarch's royal yacht's thrusters to create a propulsion vector away from their current trajectory." "Captain, that's," the comms officer started. "A calculated risk that will buy us 7 additional minutes before debris impact," Sarah cut her off. "The yacht has independent life support. Compress all 3,000 people into that space. It won't be comfortable, but they'll live. Send the transmission with my authority. Now." The officer complied, fingers flying over the console. Sarah moved to the engineering station. "Chief, our reactor is damaged but functional, correct?" The simulated chief engineer nodded. "Yes, Captain, but it's unstable. We can't risk." "Can we trigger a controlled electromagnetic pulse?" The engineer's eyes widened. "In theory, yes, but it would knock out our own systems for." "How long to restore minimum systems?" 17 minutes, maybe 15 if we." "Do it. Prepare the EMP. Set it to detonate at precisely," she calculated quickly, 23 minutes from now. The bridge erupted in protest. "Captain, that's suicide. We'll be dead in space. The Void Reaper won't be affected enough to." "Quiet." Sarah's voice cut through the chaos with a force that surprised even herself. "The Void Reaper is an autonomous weapon from the old wars. Its shielding is designed against kinetic and energy weapons, but its targeting computers and propulsion rely on quantum processors that are vulnerable to electromagnetic disruption if the pulse is calibrated correctly." She turned to the chief engineer. "You can calibrate it correctly. I know you can." The chief engineer stared at her, then slowly nodded. "Medical officer," Sarah continued, not missing a beat, "prepare emergency stims for all essential personnel. We'll need them alert the moment systems restore." "Security chief," she said, turning to a stern-faced Corthan, "have your team ready. One of my senior officers is a saboteur. They'll make their move when we're most vulnerable, right after the EMP." The bridge went silent. The XO Commander Vecris stepped forward. "Captain, how could you possibly?" "Because it's what I would do if I wanted maximum chaos," Sarah said simply. "Watch for anyone who seems too prepared for the system's failure. Someone who moves toward critical systems the moment we go dark." She returned to the captain's chair and finally sat, gripping the armrests. Helm, continue on course. Comms, confirm the transport received our instructions. Captain, they're complying. The matriarch herself approved the order. They're venting atmosphere and compressing into the yacht. Good, calculate their new trajectory. They should drift just outside the debris field's lethal radius. Confirmed, Captain. They'll clear it with 34 seconds to spare. Engineering, status on the EMP. Calibration at 60%, 70%. Captain, this is incredibly risky. If the pulse isn't perfect. It will be. I trust your expertise, Chief. The minutes ticked by with agonizing slowness. Sarah monitored every screen, every readout, her mind processing information in the uniquely human way that had allowed her species to go from stone tools to starships in mere millennia. She saw patterns, made intuitive leaps, connected dots that other species might have missed. Station Prometheus is beginning evacuation, the comms officer reported. They're reporting panic. People are trampling each other. Send them a message, Sarah said. Tell them their station has 52 minutes before impact. The Void Reaper will be disabled in 23 minutes. They have time. Send evacuation protocols. Elderly and children first, orderly queue system. Reference human historical evacuations, the Dunkirk Protocol and the Tokyo earthquake procedures. Yes, Captain. 15 minutes to EMP, engineering called out. 10 minutes. 5 minutes. Captain, I'm reading unusual activity at the auxiliary power station. Someone's trying to. Security, auxiliary power now, Sarah barked. The simulation showed security personnel rushing to the location. There was a brief struggle then. Captain, we have Lieutenant Varix in custody. He was attempting to sabotage the backup power systems. Sarah allowed herself a small smile. Bring him to the brig. We'll deal with him after. 2 minutes to EMP. All hands brace for electromagnetic pulse, Sarah announced shipwide. This will be uncomfortable, but we will come through this. Humanity has a saying, what doesn't kill you makes you stronger. Today, we prove it applies to all of us. 30 seconds. The bridge crew gripped their stations. Sarah saw fear in their eyes, but also something else, trust. She'd given them clear orders, a plan, and confidence. In return, they believed. EMP in 3, 2, 1. The ship went dark. Complete silence. No hum of engines, no glow of screens. Emergency lighting didn't even activate for the first few seconds. Sarah felt the weightlessness as artificial gravity failed. Then, in the distance, through the viewport, a pulse of blue-white light expanded from their ship. It was beautiful and terrifying, a ring of electromagnetic fury racing outward. Seconds felt like hours. Then the emergency lights flickered on. Red glow filled the bridge. The chief engineer's voice came through, strained but triumphant. Primary systems restoring. Engines online. Sensors. Captain, the Void Reaper's engines are dead. It's drifting. Helm, as soon as you have full control, set course for the Void Reaper. We're going to use our tractor beam. Tell me it survived the EMP, Chief. Tractor beam is... Yes, Captain, minimal damage. Excellent. We're going to use it to alter the Reaper's trajectory away from the station. Captain, the tactical officer said, without weapons if the Reaper reactivates. It won't. Not for at least 2 hours. Old War tech was designed for resilience, but the quantum processors need time to reboot from a full M disruption. We have a window. Sarah stood, her confidence radiating through the bridge. Comms, signal the station. Tell them the Reaper is neutralized. Continue orderly evacuation as a precaution. Helm, execute course to Reaper. The next 20 minutes were a ballet of precision. The frigate's tractor beam latched onto the massive Void Reaper, and with careful application of thrust, they began altering its trajectory. The calculations had to be perfect. Too much force would damage their engines. Too little would leave the Reaper still on a collision course. Station Prometheus is clear of the Reaper's new trajectory, the tactical officer confirmed. Captain, you did it. We did it, Sarah corrected. Helm, set course for transport Serenity. Let's bring our people home. When they reached the transport's yacht, compressed with 3,000 frightened but alive passengers, the relief was palpable. The matriarch herself sent a personal message of gratitude. The simulation ended. Sarah blinked as the bridge dissolved around her, replaced by the sterile walls of the simulation chamber. She checked her internal chrono. 12 minutes. She'd completed the scenario in 12 minutes. The door hissed open. Instructor Vextharn stood there, his 4 optical sensors focused on her with an intensity she'd never seen before. Behind him, she could see other instructors. The entire tactical faculty had apparently gathered. Cadet Chen, Vextharn's voice was unreadable. In 3 centuries, across thousands of cadets from 19 species, no one has ever completed the Corvash scenario in under 4 hours. The previous record was 4 hours and 17 minutes, held by a Corthan logistician who spent 3 of those hours running probability matrices. Sarah stood at attention, unsure if she was about to be commended or expelled for breaking the simulation somehow. You completed it in 12 minutes and 33 seconds, Vextharn continued. You saved both targets, neutralized the Void Reaper, captured the Saboteur, and maintained crew morale throughout. You used tactics that have never been attempted in this scenario. The EMP strategy alone. He paused, his translator clicking. How? Sarah took a breath. Permission to speak freely, sir. Granted. The scenario is designed to make us think like galactic strategists, weighing mathematical probabilities, considering political ramifications, analyzing long-term consequences. But humans, we evolved differently. For millions of years, we were prey animals who became predators. We learned to make snap decisions with incomplete information. We learned to trust our instincts. We learned to see patterns that logic alone might miss. She glanced at the other instructors before continuing. The scenario also assumes that the captain will think of resources in traditional terms, fuel, weapons, shields. But humans have a saying, necessity is the mother of invention. When we have no weapons, we make them. When we have no options, we create them. The EMP wasn't in the tactical database because no one thought of a ship's reactor as a weapon. The atmospheric venting wasn't standard procedure because it's dangerous and uncomfortable. But humans are really good at dangerous and uncomfortable. Vextharn was silent for a long moment. Then, in a gesture that shocked Sarah, he performed the Corvash salute, a complicated movement of his forearms that signified deep respect between warriors. Cadet Chen, you have not only passed the Corvash scenario, you have redefined it. As of now, your solution will be added to the tactical database. And you, he paused, his voice carrying something that might have been awe. You have reminded us why the Coalition sought out humanity, not because you are stronger or smarter or more advanced, but because when faced with impossible choices, you refuse to accept them as impossible. The other instructors began to applaud, a human gesture that had spread throughout the Coalition. Sarah felt a flush of pride and embarrassment. But Vextharn held up a claw. However, this also presents us with a problem. Sarah's heart sank, sir. The Corvash scenario was designed to teach cadets to face impossible decisions and accept that sometimes there is no good choice. You have just proven that a human will look at impossibility and say, not good enough. This is simultaneously your species' greatest strength and potentially your greatest weakness. He leaned closer, his optical sensors focusing with unnerving intensity. Tell me, Cadet Chen, what happens when you face a scenario that truly is impossible, when creativity and instinct aren't enough, when the universe simply says no? Sarah met his gaze without flinching. Then we'll fail, sir. We'll fail spectacularly, learn from it, and try something even crazier next time. Because that's what humans do. We fail forward. Vextharn's mandibles clicked in what she'd learned to recognize as approval. Spoken like a true coalition officer. Dismissed, cadet. And, welcome to the Elite Tactical Command Program. Something tells me your instructors are going to need to redesign their entire curriculum. As Sarah left the chamber, she heard the whispers from other cadets, no longer dismissive, but awed and slightly terrified. A Valorian cadet approached her cautiously. "Cadet Chen, how did you stay so calm? I was in there for 3 hours and I couldn't." Sarah smiled. "My grandmother survived the colony crash of Europa. My mother served in the Titan militia during the oxygen riots. I grew up hearing stories about humans who faced impossible odds and found a way through. I guess it's in my blood." She paused, then added, "But honestly, I was terrified the entire time. I just didn't let fear stop me from thinking. That's the real human trick, not being unafraid but acting despite the fear." As she walked away, Sarah couldn't help but feel a small surge of pride, not just for herself but for her entire species. Humanity had been the newest member of the Galactic Coalition, often dismissed as primitive or emotional, but today she'd shown them something important. When the galaxy said something was impossible, humans took it as a challenge. And that, more than any weapon or technology, was what made humanity truly dangerous. That night in the instructor's lounge, Vextharn sat with the senior faculty, reviewing the simulation data for the 100th time. "We need to inform the Command Council," said Instructor Pelmara, a Valorian with decades of experience. "If one human cadet can do this, what will a ship full of human tactical officers be capable of?" "Revolution," Vextharn said quietly. "They'll revolutionize warfare, diplomacy, crisis response, everything, or they'll get us all killed trying something insane." "Which do you think it will be?" Pelmara asked. Vextharn's optical sensors dimmed in thought. "Probably both, but I'll tell you this, I'm glad they're on our side." He pulled up Sarah Chen's file, studying her record, her psychological evaluations, her test scores. Everything about her was average by human standards, which meant that somewhere out there, there were humans even more capable, even more creative, even more dangerously innovative. "The galaxy has no idea what it's in for," he murmured. And in his thorax, where a human might feel it in their heart, Vextharn felt something he hadn't felt in his long career as an instructor. Hope, and just a little bit of horror. The end.